What's poppin', beautiful people up in YouTube land? I put the 3 and G value, feel me? And this vid right here, butterfly effects that redirected the course of NBA history, part 1. So I know you got a part 2. I'm a little behind, but check this one out, man. Butterfly effects. We're not talking about Travis Scott. Dun dun dun. Yeah, I know that was corny, but anyways, let's check out what we're gonna do. Let me stop prologuing it.
I'm sure some of you are familiar with the 2004 movie, The
Butterfly
Butterfly
effect. Yep.
Effect,
Yeah, this movie's
starring the
fire.
one and only Kyle Korver. Ashton Kutcher. Let's take a
They
look
dead
at
look
the
alike. Now I'm
synopsis
thinking
of the
about it.
movie, which did a great job of summing up this phenomenon. Changing the past can drastically alter the present. Now, to reiterate on that, you could look at the butterfly effect as a fancy way of saying what if. What if you went back in time and were given the opportunity to make one small change in history? But you better be careful because
Nah,
that seemingly small change.
everything that happens for a reason, bro. You just gotta learn from it. I want to do this. Want to go back to? Nah, bro. Everything happens for a reason. That makes you a better person. Going
Can
back,
cause
I
a
want to do that.
massive ripple effect, resulting in an entirely different outcome than what we see today. Even the sport of basketball as we know it might not have ever been invented if Springfield, Massachusetts had slightly warmer winters. If you didn't know already, the weather there in 1891 forced James Naismith to come up with a new indoor game in order to keep his students active. Even something as simple as a
Mm.
coin flip had implications that are still felt today. So without further ado, let's go through some crazy chain reactions. And I
Wow,
hope
imagine basketball not being created, bro. That would be crazy, bro. That would be very crazy. Why am I whispering? It sound like ASMR.
bunch of what could have been. 2003 NBA Draft, one of the most stacked drafts of all time,
One of the best
full of
ones.
superstars, as
The
well
GOAT.
as several solid role players.
Congrats,
There were
LeBron.
so many options to pick from,
I love you.
but at the end of the day, everyone really wanted to get their hands on LeBron. The first 10 picks that were revealed at the draft lottery pretty much went as predicted. So when it got down to the final 3 teams to be revealed, it was pretty intense and nerve-wracking.
The third pick goes to the Denver Nuggets.
With the Nuggets landing the 3rd overall selection, that meant that the Cavs and Grizzlies were the only teams left
The
for
Grizzlies.
a chance to draft LeBron. But for Memphis, there was one problem. You see, back in 1997, the Vancouver Grizzlies made a trade with the Detroit Pistons, and in that trade, the Grizzlies received Otis Thorpe, while the Pistons got back a future first-round pick. So, fast forwarding to 2003, wherever Memphis landed in this draft lottery, it would actually belong to the Pistons, unless the Grizzlies got the number 1 overall pick. That was the only way they would get to keep their pick. So, first year president Jerry West was stressing out. Let's go ahead and watch how things went down.
The second pick goes to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Jerry West's face says it all. He knew right then and there that not
God
only would he
freaking
not be getting
darn it.
LeBron, but they also got pushed out of the top 10 altogether, just like that, because that second pick belonged to Detroit now. That must have been heartbreaking. I know that 1997 trade basically ended up costing them Carmelo and D Wade, but at the same time, it was almost like a tease being that close to getting the number 1 spot. And what's crazy is that Memphis actually won 50 games the next season and managed to make the playoffs. So if LeBron ended up going to the Grizzlies, that obviously would have been a great addition to their already solid
That'd have
roster.
been crazy.
We already talk about how Melo could have been a champion as a rookie if the Pistons drafted it.
I mean, Grizzlies, you gotta feel Knicks fans' pains, bro. Knicks, bro, don't get lucky any year, bro. The only time they got lucky was Patrick Ewing, and that was what, over 30 years ago? It was like 35 years ago, bro.
Well, if things went a little differently, you could certainly say the same thing for LeBron on the Grizzlies, as he wouldn't have had to carry the team to the same degree as he did with the Cavs. The basketball world was only one ping pong ball away from being sent in a completely different trajectory. Moving on to one that was more in Jerry West's control, in the 2014 offseason, the Golden State Warriors came off of a hard-fought 7-game series
I remember
in
this.
which they lost to the Clippers in the first round.
I was like, "I got
which
this next year."
resulted in the
Next year went
firing
crazy.
Of Coach Mark Jackson, as
I was
they felt
tight
they
when they
needed
fired
to
him.
make some changes in order to take the next step. And another move that they were considering was trading Klay Thompson for
Kevin Love. Yeah, I remember that.
Warriors were understandably hesitant at first, but they knew they had.
Yeah, that's crazy how time flies and you like, damn. I know they dumb happy they never did that, bro. Klay is the best supporting player for Stephen Curry, bro. Like, they work perfectly together, man.
To make somewhat of a sacrifice if they wanted to reach their ultimate goal. I mean, at the time, Kevin Love did just come off of an incredible
Yeah, that season was
individual
crazy.
season, so they definitely would be getting something back in return. And the trade was basically complete. It was pretty much a done deal until Jerry West, who was a consultant for that Golden State team, stepped in and put the trade to a stop. Because he said he still really believed in Klay and had a feeling that he would become a special player.
And once Jerry
So
West
what
feels
did
something,
Jerry
you gotta go with it.
ultimately do that ended up convincing Golden State to not go through with the deal? He threatened to quit his job if they didn't listen to him. As you know, Thompson would remain a Warrior, and obviously that was the best thing that could have happened, all thanks to Jerry West having a sudden change of heart. So, really quickly, what if the Warriors gave away Thompson in 2014? Well, first of all, we wouldn't have witnessed his legendary Game 6 performance in the 2016 Western Conference
that was
Finals,
crazy.
which would mean OKC would have made the finals that year. And more importantly, Kevin Durant more than likely would not have joined the Warriors, as he instead probably would have stayed with the Thunder, enjoying his success there. Also, Klay was the one who inadvertently broke Kyrie's kneecap. So, if he was traded to the T-Wolves in 2014, we wouldn't have seen any of these things go down. Just something to think about. We've all heard the story before. Len Bias tragically passing away just 2
AKA,
days after
dude, that
being
would have been better than
selected
Jordan.
second overall by the Boston Celtics in the 1986 NBA draft. He was a very explosive athlete who drew many comparisons to Michael Jordan. He was considered to be the most complete player at his position and certainly had a bright future coming his way. But unfortunately, he was gone before he could ever step foot on the court. Of course, that was a huge blow to the Celtics organization.
Yo, this music, bro. So that it make it even more spookier. Everything. So RIP though, man. But
and had no other choice but to move on. So the following year, in the very next draft, they took Reggie Lewis in the first round, which turned out to be a great decision because by his second season, he would average 18 points per game for Boston. He looked like he was on his way to being a big part of their future, especially since Larry Bird was battling with injuries. Lewis eventually blossomed into an all-star caliber player, elevating into averaging 20 points per game early in his career. But in 1993, bad luck would strike again for the Celtics organization. During a playoff game against the Charlotte Hornets, Reggie Lewis suddenly collapsed to the ground, lying there for several moments. Eventually, he did manage to get back up and tried to continue playing, but he couldn't fully catch his breath, so he was forced to call it a night. But little did he know, that would be his final game. The next day, a doctor informed him that he might have an irregular heartbeat, so he better do what he can to take care of that. But another doctor said that it wasn't all that serious, so of course, Lewis listened to the second doctor and continued to work out to get ready for the next season. But during an off-season practice, he once again fell to the ground out of nowhere, and unfortunately did not get back up this time. He was just 27 years old. So the question is, what if
27 club
and Reggie Lewis never tragically passed away so unexpectedly? Would the Celtics have stayed competitive well into the 90s?
Yo, that squad would have been crazy.
Would have been too good to draft Paul Pierce in 1998. Also meaning that
bro, Paul Pierce almost died too. That's the crazy thing, bro. Didn't he get like stabbed up multiple times and then like the next day or so he came back playing? Damn, that that would be great. Could have been another what if on top of that. That's
Big
crazy.
Three would have never existed, causing to actually stay in Cleveland instead of joining Miami. All I'm saying is, even if just one of them stayed alive, the dominoes might have fell in a different direction. Even though Bias and Lewis passed away 7 years apart from each other, what are the chances that the Celtics selected players in back-to-back drafts who ultimately left us too soon? Absolutely scary. Next, we have a story so bizarre, it's almost like it was meant to happen. It was February 2008, just about 2 years removed from the Heat's '06 championship. Things were not going too well in Miami. Shaq's career was on the decline as injuries were beginning to catch up to him. One day, the team was getting ready to start practice when Jason Williams arrived only 10 seconds late, but Pat Riley didn't care if he barely made it. It was still 10 seconds too long. So Riley yelled at him saying, "Get the hell out of here." Then
Wow.
Shaq stepped in and said, "We're a team. We have to stick together." So Pat Riley responded by saying, "If you don't like it, you can go too."
What?
That caused Shaq to say, "Why don't you make me?" As he then got up in Riley's face. Udonis Haslem and Alonzo Mourning had to come to the rescue and hold Shaq back. It got pretty nasty.
Son,
Pat
Udonis
Riley
is still
had
on
enough
that team.
with Shaq, so he did not hesitate to immediately trade Shaq to the Phoenix Suns, since the trade deadline was approaching anyway. The Heat would receive Sean Marion and Marcus Banks in return. A year later, Miami was in desperate need of a third big man to go along with Joel Anthony and Mark Blount, because Shaq and Mourning were no longer there. So during the 2009 trade deadline, the Heat traded Marion and Banks to the Raptors in exchange for Jermaine O'Neal and Jamario Moon. Moon would later sign with the Cavs that offseason, as Miami no longer needed him. So fast forward to 2011, the LA Clippers felt that they needed to move on from their aging point guard Baron Davis, so they traded him along with a first-round pick to the Cavaliers in exchange for Mo Williams and Jamario Moon. Then came along the draft lottery a couple months later.
Where's this
The
going?
Cavs had a 19.9% chance of getting the number one pick with their own odds, while the Clippers pick, which the Cavs received from the Baron Davis trade, only had a 2.7% chance of winning the lottery. But somehow, the Clippers' first-round pick that actually belonged to Cleveland now landed the number one overall pick of the upcoming draft, which we all know turned out to be Kyrie Irving. And
Yeah.
it's just another example of the Clippers' curse. So Cavs fans should be forever thankful that Jay Will did not show up to practice on time, because otherwise LeBron probably wouldn't have gone back to Cleveland if Kyrie wasn't there. And we
That one
wouldn't
I
have
don't
had
even
the
really get that
privilege
much.
of watching that epic 2016
Yeah,
NBA
that was
Finals.
amazing. This
A
finals was
seemingly
amazing.
unrelated event led to Kyrie.
That one, I don't know, was a little bit more confusing. That was a lot going into that last one. Like, it's one thing to the next thing to the next thing, but yeah, this one's crazy, bro. Anything that's conspiracy is always like mind-boggling to me. Like this joint, yeah, I definitely got to see part two. I definitely got to see part two now. But it's your boy G up and out of here. Peace.